become the greatest version of yourself. Well, tonight we're going to talk about something that's, a lot of people don't want to talk about, sex and relationships. It's very common. Actually, 1 out of 4 relationships are sexless. And when our partner doesn't want to be intimate or have sexual contact, it can be incredibly rejecting and hurtful. Now, for those of you watching, even if you're listening, hang on just a couple of minutes. I'm going to show you, for those of you watching, there's a reason there's a computer screen behind or a TV screen behind me. I'm going to show you a dramatic example of a little known and rarely talked about reason as to why and what is causing a partner's lack of sexual interest. So if you're just tuning into the show, just hang out for a couple minutes. When you see this 30-second spot, you're going to be blown away and go, oh my God, I had no idea. It'll transform your life. So please hang in there with me for a couple minutes. Now, the most common reasons that people don't want to have sex are, we've all heard them. A lack of interest. Sometimes as men age, their testosterone levels change and they lose interest. That happens. Or even females, they're just, you get into later years and some just lose an interest in it. So that's very common and normal. But other more questioning, I guess, reasons they decline is generally, in many cases, people will say they have some unresolved anger or hurt, either at their partner or somewhere in their life. There could be an affair going on, or it could be in the past that still hasn't been worked through. For men, and actually for women too, performance issues. Men have the typical erectile dysfunction issue, but women, whether it's pain or many of the other things, they can struggle with performance issues. There's the usual, probably the most common is stress, which is actually fear, but most people, when they think of stress, they think of their work life, their family, kids, finances, typical work life stresses. There could be health issues, physical and emotional are possible. Addictions, maybe one or both partners are addicted to alcohol or food or pills or pot, drugs, sleeping pills. Maybe one of the partners addicted to porn. Anxiety and depression are common reasons people will give. Bad work-life balance. Some, it just depends. They were raised they got the message that sex was somehow shameful or dirty. And so that gets in their way. And then one that is also very prominent is some sort of sexual or emotional or childhood trauma. That's got the statistics on, depending on what you're talking about, but sexually, almost 1 out of 4 people have been sexually traumatized. So that can really show up. Well, while all of those are very common and well-accepted reasons, it's been my experience that while all of these are symptoms, the underlying cause with every client I've ever run into and every person I've ever talked to with a lack of sexual interest, it is always at the deep. Once you get beyond these surface, the surface reasons I just gave, at its deepest core with every single person, it is always unaddressed codependence and or enmeshment, which leads to something called love avoidance. And in every case I've ever seen, the person who they used to call it sexual anorexia, or the person who's not wanting to be sexual, is a codependent love avoidant. Now the question becomes, what causes that? And for many people, they're like, what the hell? I've never even heard of these terms. And that's why just another minute or two, I'm going to show you. Just hang in there. But what causes enmeshment and enmeshed codependent love avoidant? It's caused in childhood. They suffered enmeshment, which, as I posted on Facebook today, yesterday, I posted this picture of looks like a mother holding a child, and the description, tells people that, sometimes you're going to need to hug your child more than they need the hug. Well, that's a classic example of enmeshment. It's a reverse umbilical cord. So in other words, when an emotionally upset parent, they reach down to their kids and unwittingly they enmesh, meaning they use their child as a surrogate adult, spouse, partner. There are lots of different terms you could use to make themselves feel better, because it's what happened to them in childhood. They don't know any better. They're not bad parents or bad people. They're just unaware. So this reverse umbilical cord, there's a reason the umbilical cord goes in only one direction. There are a lot of people arguing me about this post. I'm like, look, we're supposed to feed our kids. It's not that umbilical cord doesn't go two ways. It only goes one way. And it's the same thing with emotion. It is not our child's job to feed us emotionally. That's only our job, just like the umbilical cord. So what creates enmeshment is a reversing of that. The parent, because they were raised this way, they end up using the child to meet their emotional needs. I'm going to show you an incredible example of it. Just hang on for a second. So what happens when a child feels like they have to take care of their parent emotionally is what that results is this gives the child a false sense of power. Think of it. They're now the parent. They're powerful, but also a tremendous fear of being engulfed or getting too close to somebody. Well, what is sex? Connection, intimacy, okay? Because they were overwhelmed by their parents' emotional needs, they feel freaked out by somebody who wants intimacy. So sadly, from having to play the role of parent, they were abandoned emotionally. That's why these two reasons, that's why one, the power dynamic, they control sex, it gives them power, but it also allows them to avoid the fear of being intimate and therefore experiencing the abandonment. See, when a parent reaches down like that picture I posted, the child is being abandoned. The child, it's a picture of an infant being asked to take care of an adult. Well, that's how children die. Their only way to survive is a pure one-way transfer of attachment to an adult. But the adult has to be there emotionally for them to attach. Well, if an adult drops that role and now is using the child to fill their own unmet childhood attachment needs, that attachment bond gets severed. Therefore, in that moment, in that picture, the child even though they're being hugged by this adult, they're being abandoned, based on the description. If a mother or father is feeling that emotional turmoil inside of them, okay? So that creates something called enmeshment. I'm going to give you some keys here to look for. What creates enmeshment to look in your life is, as a child, were you asked to be a caretaker physically or emotionally for one or both of your parents? Were they helpless in some fashion? If so, you gained that false power by taking care of them. Secondly, was there any parent who was depressed or angry or very controlling? That will also create this enmeshed feeling, because the child now feels responsible for their parents' difficult feelings, okay? Because in most cases, parents leave those things untreated, all right? Was there any type of direct or indirect sexual or physical or emotional abuse? All right, obviously we know direct emotional abuse, but like my mom, when she would hug me, she'd push her groin into me. That's indirect sexual abuse. She didn't physically touch me like we all think, but my mom, I knew even as a kid, the way my mom looked at me, she thought I was attractive. The whole daddy's little girl, I saw this in Subway. This man with a, 16, 17-year-old daughter, they're arm in arm, and he's patting her and rubbing her on the butt. That's indirect, what's called covert sexual abuse, okay? If you experience that, that will create this enmeshment in this fear of sexuality. If you ever heard your parents say this simple phrase, you made me feel. When you didn't eat your dinner, when you didn't put your toys away, when you didn't do your homework, when you didn't eat dinner, you made me feel. You guys are driving me crazy. When a parent does that, they are saying, you have more power in this relationship than I do. I need you to change so I feel better emotionally. That's what creates enmeshment, eventually, in some, not all, a fear of intimacy and sex. Now, if you're still unsure if you were enmeshed with or raised codependently, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Have you ever felt afraid to tell your parents something about yourself? Something maybe you did either recently or in the past, or a belief you have? Because if you were afraid that they may not approve of that choice or decision or belief, if you're afraid that it will upset them, that proves you have spent your life trying to meet their emotional needs above your own. That is classic codependence and enmeshment. So that settles it right there. Just ask yourself, if you're ever afraid to express who you are and what matters to you because you think your parents might not approve or get upset with you, that means you've been raised codependently and enmeshed. Now, I'm going to show you this example of it because when you see it, it'll really hit home. This is heartbreaking. And I took it from a reality show. I love to watch reality shows because it
Are very close.
Because they give, I wish somebody would hire me to show these dynamics, relationship dynamics, parenting dynamics, so people can learn how we're all unwittingly, because we don't teach this stuff, suffering pain and trauma. This is from a show. I think it's called Marrying Millions. It's older men, younger women, younger men, older women. It's all, they have money or whatever. That part doesn't matter. I mean, that's a different, I could do a whole nother show on that. But in this example, it's a 23-year-old young man. He's dating a 37-year-old. He hasn't told his parents for 6 months. He is just sitting down to tell his parents for the first time. And I pushed play on accident too soon. What the mother was just about to say is that they've had this incredibly close relationship. Colton tells her everything. Watch this, and then I'm gonna show you how damaging this is to a child, and what the results are.
Always have been. For him to keep this relationship a secret has really just broken my heart. I thought you could always tell us anything, but apparently you can't. I mean, when you don't tell me, it makes me feel like I'm a bad mom, and you're afraid to tell me stuff, and I don't understand that.
I want to tell y'all stuff, and I should be able to, but I didn't want to disappoint y'all. Any stuff that...
That's it. The whole clip's a minute and a half, but did you hear the mother? Did you hear what she said? When you don't tell me, you, Colton, make me feel like a bad mom. In that moment, she is asking her son to be her validation, her parent, and confirm that she's a good mother. Okay? So mom is expecting her son to meet her emotional needs by placing the responsibility on her son to make her feel like a good mother. That's not his job. She finds that from within, not from her child. And parents do this all the time. They blame their kids for feeling like a bad parent. She's also looking to her son to validate her as a mother. That places the responsibility for her whole happiness on his shoulders. Think of that. He's 23 years old, and he feels the responsibility of making his mother feel safe and comfortable in the world. He then, at the end, did you hear that? He then blames himself for not being open with her. But how could he? Did you see what happened? After 6 months, he came clean with her. He opened up to her, just like when she started off the clip. We're so close, we talk about everything. He exposed his thoughts, his beliefs, what he's been doing with his life. And what does she do? The second he gets vulnerable and exposes his heart and what matters to him, she immediately ignores him, tells him he's bad, he's unworthy, he did a poor job as a son, and he made her feel like a bad mother. Well, you wonder why a child wouldn't want to tell their parents things. And this is what we all do. I did it too until I learned this stuff. I still, even after I learned it, I can think of a specific example where I did it to my youngest daughter. It's so ingrained in the culture. We think this is love. It's not. This is this isn't direct emotional abuse. This is covert. She's completely unaware because she hasn't been taught any of this. And it just shows the way she was raised. She was raised to take care of her parents emotionally. So now he's actually a foster son. And what's even worse is he goes on to say in the clip there, his birth mother, if he spilled a bowl of cereal, he got beat to death. So he's had 2 women in his life, 2 mother figures. One physically abuses him, one emotionally abuses him for his imperfections. Okay, think of that. Of course, he would date a 37-year-old woman. He's still looking for a mother that will love him unconditionally. Like, hello, people, it's like painfully obvious why he's attracted to an older woman. He's looking for a mother because the 2 mothers he's had have asked him to be the parent. He's never had a chance to be a child. So now he's found somebody who's willing to play that role, at least for now. I'll watch the show more. It would not shock me that she'll cut his legs out from under him as well at some point. So this is heartbreaking, but I had to show it. And I hope Facebook doesn't kick the video because it's a TV show, because people need to see this. Not because anyone's a bad parent. This video is going to rock a lot of people's souls because they're going, oh my God, I do that all the time. Please, I am not trying to say you're a bad parent. You can't be blamed for doing something you were completely unaware you were doing. That's why I started the greatness movement. That's why I do this. We need this kind of education. We need to learn this. So if you were raised in this manner, no wonder you wouldn't want to be sexual. How could you be? My heart bleeds for you. I'm not denigrating you and saying you're a bad person for not wanting to be sexual. I'm trying to reach in and go, I'm the first one who sees why you're afraid of being sexual. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. So when you've been raised this way, how will this play out in the rest of your life? Here are the avoidance techniques that sexual anorexic love avoidance will use. They will get overly involved with their work, their kids, animals. Oh my God, the amazing explosion of people and their animals. That's all enmeshment, codependence, and avoidance of intimacy, because an animal, it's a one-way transfer. They never have to risk. I'm not saying animals are bad, but you're seeing more and more people, their primary relationship, like I'll see it on Facebook. You have to be able to accept my dog first. That's an emotional barrier, okay? Church, charity work, those are other things. They get involved in things outside of the relationship. They will often be late because that gives them power. Quite often they're very disorganized, very cluttered because of that childhood emotionally. It's just overwhelming to be organized. It's an expression of their abandonment and also it's a subconscious of expression of how powerless they feel. That's why everything's disorganized and cluttered. They will have addictions, either to porn, alcohol, tobacco, your phones, looking at their phone nonstop, pot, drugs, food is huge for everybody. They have health issues. Whenever we're sick and hurt, who's in power? I know people are like, wait a minute, I don't get sick for that reason. Yes, you do. When you do the research, almost everybody gets sick because of trapped emotion. The CDC even estimates over 85% of all health conditions are emotion-based. When you clean up the emotion, your health condition improves. Men tend to have physical affairs. Women tend to have emotional affairs because women will lose their power if they have a sexual affair, right? Just the act of sex is disempowering, the mechanics of it. And so women tend to have emotional affairs. They'll have a best friend at work that they tell all their life story to, but they won't share it with their spouse or boyfriend. Do you see the dual power dynamic? The husband wants that information, can't get it. The male friend at work wants to have sex, but she's too loyal and doesn't cheat. So she has two men fighting over her. She never has to fear abandonment or fear being engulfed and too close to either one of them. They tend to use blame shifting, gaslighting, criticism, and complaints. It's all to create distance, to create a wall, so they don't feel too close to you, and you never feel close to them. One critical thing is they will hardly ever argue or discuss things, because think of it, if they got in an argument with you, they could lose power. What if they are proven wrong? So they don't even want to talk about it. Like the sex issue. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. Okay? They and that's why they will usually expect you to just accept their lack of desire for sex. Well, I don't know what it is. We'll go talk to a doctor. No, I don't need to. It's just deal with it. That's the power dynamic. They won't take ownership of it. Okay? Now, that's another thing. They won't take ownership of it. They won't get help. They won't talk to a counselor. They won't, because look at what happens if they do. They have to be intimate. They have to share their feelings. Well, just like Colton, the second he shared his feelings, he was basically raped emotionally. That's probably a bit strong, but it's not far from the truth. So to go to a doctor or somebody and open up about their fears and feelings feels like childhood. Screw that. I suffered enough. I don't want to get intimate. That's why it can be very difficult for them to seek treatment and seek help, true help for these conditions. They'll get overly involved in their friends, their siblings, their parents, and their strangers' problems. They're constantly trying to fix everyone else's stuff. Another thing is they still talk to and see their parents constantly or seek their approval. Christmas comes and they're just crazy. Oh my God, my mom doesn't like that. What are you doing? And then mom and dad show up and they cater to mom and dad. They completely ignore you now. That's a classic way this gets exercised. Now, this is how they tend to describe themselves, where it's dating profiles, Facebook profiles, just talking to them in general. Now, these are generalities, there's subtleties to it, but these are common descriptors they will use. Okay, I'm telling you this to try and break down, if this sounds like you, I'm trying to help you break down the fear of intimacy, the wall of denial you've had to construct because you were harmed so much emotionally. And so I want you to be able to hear yourself, not as a judgment. My goal is to basically, like I said, open my arms and go, I hear you, I see you, my heart breaks for you. What you need is recognition and true intimacy. So please don't hear me as judging you when I give these basic outlines of how they describe themselves. They will tend to think or even say that they're smarter than other people because of the false power they received from having to be a parent to their parents. That's the byproduct of it. They have what's called a one-up mentality. They're always right. They're smarter than everybody. That's what, that picture that I posted on Facebook, that's a parent raising a child to be what's called over-empowered. And so, gosh, was this said about you too as a child? Man, you're much more mature than your age. If you have a child like that, or if you were a child like that, that's a sure sign you were raised to be a parent. You were robbed of your childhood. They'll tend to say that they are sweet and sensitive, but also incredibly strong and stubborn, and the most loyal person you will ever know. Well, of course they're loyal. They've been loyal to their parents and their parents' needs all of their life. They are very sweet, but that stubbornness, that's strong, that's anger, that stuff-veiled anger at never being able to meet their needs and wants. They did develop a sweet and caring side because they had to. That's what mom and dad trained them to be, to take care of them. And that's also what created the loyalty. But that strong, stubborn side is actually repressed rage and anger. They refuse to let that emotion out. And that's the so-called strength. Okay. Again, I'm not disparaging you. I'm trying to let you know it's okay. It's okay. My heart breaks for you. This one is key. They will often say that their greatest weakness is that they care too much. Of course they do. Of course they do. And genuinely, they do. But they do from a codependent, what they don't realize is the way they've been taught to care is a codependent, manipulative way to care for people. It's not a genuine caring dynamic. They haven't been exposed to it. But literally, consciously, they think they are the most caring people. And every single thing they try and do for you, they, in the heart of hearts, they truly believe they're being caring. But just like this mother, she thinks she's being caring. And it wasn't long after that, she told her son, we're not like your mother. I'm not like your mother. I didn't beat you. I raised you correctly. No, you didn't physically beat your son or your foster son. You emotionally beat him. She's just like that's not the right term. They both have similar qualities. They have both damaged their son. Okay. And so a person who feels they care too much, it's because they don't know how to care for themselves. They weren't allowed to. And so they sacrifice themselves over and over and over under the guise of I'm a caring person. No, it's because you'll feel guilty and bad and like you're wrong if you actually took care of yourself and stood up for yourself. You've never been allowed to. And that's heartbreaking. Now, there's a complete opposite dynamic. That's called the one-up. A person with those characteristics, they've assumed the power position. What it looks like Colton's going the opposite direction. Instead of taking the power position, like the traits I just spoke of, they'll become immense people pleasers. They'll just stuff all this pain to please you. They'll never voice it, or it'll come out in sarcasm or passive aggressiveness. But they always have the smile on their face. Oh, nothing. Well, no, that's not a good example. Most people don't know who that is. But if an example pops up in my mind, I'll let you know of a well-known, people pleaser. If I can think of it. Okay. So how do you know if you're a parent, say you're struggling with the sexual avoidance, the anorexia, the enmeshment and codependence, how do you know if you're enmeshing with your children? Here's some markers for you to think about. If your happiness or your sadness is determined or influenced by your children, if they are your source of emotional contentment, and that was a lot of the people responding on Facebook, they were saying, they're my source, and I just cringed inside. If your mood shifts and your happiness and sadness fluctuates because of how your kids treat you, what's going on in their lives, if it's tied in to your children, That is classic enmeshment. That is very toxic, and you're raising a potential love avoidant. Okay. Here's example number 2. If you feel you need to know everything your child think and do and be completely involved in their life, just like the mother on TV, you have no boundaries because you get your source of power and sense of motherhood or fatherhood from knowing about and being over involved in their life. That's a red flag, massive red flag. If this is number 3, if your entire focus is on taking care of your children rather than on taking care of yourself and sharing the responsibility of taking care of the children with your partner. Now, this becomes much more difficult if you're a single parent, as most parents are. So the caveat to that would be is instead of reaching down to your children to support you emotionally, you put them to bed and you get on the phone with Joe or Susie or an adult versus trying to attach to your kids that way. Also, you invest in nights out for yourself. You invest in self-care. I get your nails done. Guys, go to a football game. But you invest in your own quality of life outside of your children. These next ones are big ones, and this I see all over social media. If you are afraid or sad that your kids are growing up and they will leave, and that's heartbreaking to you, that's codependence, massive codependence. And if you express that to them or they sense that or feel that, you are enmeshing with them. It's our job to raise kids to leave. And a healthy adult looks forward to that day. Yes, of course, there's sadness. That would be healthy. You've spent 18 years, probably, maybe 20, with this person. It will be a change. But the overriding feeling is a sense of, man, it's your turn to go be great. I can't wait to see what you go do. That should be the overriding sense that a parent has. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with your life versus sadness of, oh my God, my life's over. I don't have anything without my child. That is a massive, massive alarm bell. Okay? If you're afraid, this usually coincides with it. If you're afraid, your child will no longer need you. That's a massive red flag. And finally, if you ever say to your kids something along the lines of, you make me feel, just like the mother did, please, if the second that comes out, I want you to start to say that, I want you to stop yourself and go, no, it's time I go get help. I learn about these things. And I stop asking my kids to be my parent. Okay. Those, like I said, in my experience, those are the reasons. The underlying reason in every case I've ever seen, it's been an adult who's been enmeshed with codependence and codependence/enmeshment, which created love avoidance. And so one of the primary ways a love avoidant expresses their love avoidance is withholding sex. And while they have these wonderful, plausible reasons, in every case I've ever run into, underneath all of those plausible reasons is always a childhood like this that has never been addressed or dealt with. And until that really gets healed, it can be a very long road. So I'm going to stop it there. I want you to tune in next week because I'm going to give you solutions. I'm going to show you the roadmap out of this. And if you have been affected by this type of parenting, or if you find yourself going, oh my God, I didn't know I'm doing this to my kids, I'm going to give you tons of resources next week to start working on that. Another option, I have a greatness group starting August 15th. We run through all of this and many other things. You can begin the healing there. Please go to www.thegreatnessmovement.com. Right there on the opening screen, there's a little blurb. I only have 2 or 3 spots left for that group. It meets once a month. That's it. Once a month, 7 p.m. Class lasts about an hour or more. An hour and 15 minutes, something like that. If you recognize yourself in these descriptions, if you recognize your childhood, if you recognize your parenting style, and you want to heal, please join that. If not, if you're not ready for that, that's fine. Tune in next week. I'm going to give you resources and skills to overcome all of this. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it. This is difficult stuff. Whenever we talk about parenting, everyone gets defensive. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm not disparaging your parents or you as a parent. I'm trying to lovingly reach out to you because you're suffering in pain, whether you recognize it or not. And so did your parents. And it's time we start talking about these deeper truths. We don't have to suffer this much. So I hope I know where my heart was when I put this show together. I hope it came across. I hope I didn't come across condescending or mean. That's something I can do at times because of the way I was raised. So if I did, please point it out. I love owning and getting better and healing from my own codependence and enmeshment. But I really want you to know my goal was to make you feel loved and appreciated and seen. For the first time, that little child in you, I want that child in you to go, yes, I see you, and my heart hurts for you. And it's a shame you had to go through this. All right, let's end it there. Remember, as I always say, when we judge, blame, or criticize, the only reason we can see those things in other people is because we see them in us. It's our denial. We're seeing aspects of ourselves we haven't reconciled and therefore been able to forgive ourselves. But the opposite is also true. Whenever we see greatness, the only reason we can see it is because we have that greatness in us as well. If you don't feel like you can see that greatness or accept it, we can help you find that. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. And I can't wait to see you back here next week.
I can do anything. I can